Gregory was charged with felony exposure of sexual organs, second offense, and solicitation for prostitution. The solicitation charge was dropped, and the felony exposure charge was reduced to a misdemeanor charge, which he was subsequently found guilty of.
This man's brazen act of public indecency, captured on video by his victim, should have sealed his fate with a felony conviction. Instead, the very evidence that proved his guilt became part of a baffling legal process that saw his serious charges evaporate, leaving him with little more than a slap on the wrist. This isn't a story about a clever criminal, but about a justice system that took a mountain of proof and turned it into a molehill. The entire incident began on a bright sunny day at Dick Blake Park, a place meant for families and recreation, which was about to become the stage for a disturbing encounter. Police cruisers rolled into the parking lot, their arrival signaling that the peace had been shattered. Officers were responding to a call about a man exposing himself to a young woman, a report that always carries a heavy sense of urgency. They found their suspect, a middle-aged man named Gregory, standing beside a plain white work van parked near the tree line. He wore a red t-shirt with a company logo, giving him an air of normalcy that contrasted sharply with the accusation against him. As the officers approached, their training was evident in their cautious, measured steps. They fanned out slightly, creating a perimeter. The initial exchange was tense. Gregory's hands were initially raised, a gesture of compliance, but his face was a mask of confusion and feigned innocence. One officer immediately took control, his voice calm but firm, instructing Gregory to put down a bottle he was holding.
What were you doing out here today? So put that bottle down.
Just hanging out down there.
Anything you need to know about? Anything that's going to cut me or anything?
This was the beginning of a standard procedure, but every action was fraught with unspoken tension. The officer announced he was going to conduct a pat-down for weapons, a necessary precaution in any encounter. Gregory verbally consented, but his body language screamed discomfort. The officer's gloved hands began a methodical search, starting from the shoulders and moving down. He checked every potential hiding spot. Gregory stood with his back to the van, his posture stiff as the officer's hands explored the pockets of his dark pants. The search was a careful dance of authority and submission, a routine that felt anything but routine under the park's glaring sun. All the while, the police questioned him about his presence in the park. Gregory offered a weak explanation, claiming he was simply out there sunbathing. The officers exchanged a skeptical glance. Sunbathing fully clothed, next to a van, in a public park known for its walking trails and playgrounds, was an excuse that held no water. His story was as thin as the fabric of his shirt, and the officers knew it. They pressed him further, pointing out the absurdity of sunbathing in such a manner, especially down a secluded trail away from open areas. Gregory's defense began to crumble under the weight of simple logic. He gestured vaguely, his hands fluttering in the air as he tried to explain an action that was fundamentally inexplicable. His composure was fraying at the edges, the facade of an innocent bystander cracking with every question. The focus of the investigation then shifted from the suspect to the accuser. From across the park, a young woman with distinctive red hair approached the officers. She was the one who had made the call, the victim of Gregory's alleged crime. Her demeanor was a mixture of anxiety and resolve. As she began to recount the events that had led to this confrontation, she explained that she had been skateboarding, exploring the back trails of the park, hoping to find a bridge she had seen on a map. It was there, in a more secluded area, that she first encountered Gregory. She admitted to having social anxiety, a vulnerability that Gregory seemed to exploit. He initiated small talk, the kind of mundane, disarming chatter that can easily mask predatory intentions. He asked how she was doing, if she came to the park often, classic lines used to gauge a person's willingness to engage. Feeling cornered by her own desire not to be rude, she accepted his offer to help her find the bridge.
I saw him, and I just have social anxiety, so I turned around. And then, he came up to me, he was just, making small talk, how you doing? Do you come here often? What are you doing? I was trying to look for the bridge, so he helped me.
He walked with her, a seemingly helpful stranger, leading her across the small bridge. On her way back, the encounter took a sinister turn. She saw him again, this time holding a beer. Then, without warning, he turned towards her, his pants undone, fully exposed. The pretense of a friendly local vanished, replaced by the grim reality of a sexual predator. He then made a vulgar proposition, asking if she wanted to have some fun. It was a moment of pure violation, turning a peaceful afternoon into a traumatic ordeal. But in that moment of fear, she had the presence of mind to act. She revealed the crucial piece of information that would change the entire dynamic of the investigation. She had recorded him. She had video evidence of the entire act on her phone. The officer's expressions hardened. What was once a he said, she said situation, albeit with a very credible witness, now had irrefutable digital proof. The young woman fumbled with her phone, her hands shaking slightly as she pulled up the video.
Yeah, that's good enough.
Is that a video?
The officer took the phone and watched the footage. The victim shielded her face, not wanting to relive the moment. The officer confirmed the video was clear enough. The digital file contained the undeniable truth of Gregory's actions. With this new evidence secured, the police sent a link to the victim so she could upload the video directly to them, preserving the chain of custody. The time for questions and gentle probing was over. Now it was time for action. The officers returned to Gregory, who was now sitting on the curb, the picture of dejection. The lead officer knelt down, no longer asking questions about sunbathing but beginning the formal process of an arrest. He pulled out a card and began reading Gregory his Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Each word was delivered with methodical precision. Gregory listened, his head bowed. When asked if he understood his rights and wished to speak, he agreed. He launched into a rambling, incoherent defense. He claimed a skateboarder just passed him by, that he might have heard something, but he denied everything. His story was a desperate attempt to create confusion, but it was too late. The video had spoken for him, and it told a very different story. His denials became more frantic. I was dressed when she walked by, he insisted, his voice rising. He gestured wildly, trying to physically demonstrate his innocence, but his movements only made him look more agitated and guilty. The officer cut through his rant with a direct question. Did you pull your face towards her with your junk out? Gregory's response was to cover his face with his hands, a gesture of pure defeat. He mumbled something about her filming him, as if that was the real crime. The charade was over. The officers instructed him to stand up and turn around.
Alright, gonna stand up. That's all I need. Face that way for me. You got cuffs on you, Deacons?
Tough, yeah.
Gregory complied, his shoulders slumping. The distinct clicking sound of handcuffs echoed in the quiet park as the cold metal bracelets were secured around his wrists. His freedom was officially gone. The arrest was followed by a more thorough search. As the officer patted him down again, a blade was discovered. He's got a knife, one officer announced, adding another layer of danger to the situation. They searched his shoes and pockets, meticulously cataloging everything before placing him in the back of a squad car. He was officially trespassed from the park, warned that if he ever returned, he would be arrested on sight. As he was led away in handcuffs, the case seemed straightforward. A predator had been caught in the act, confirmed by video evidence, and taken off the streets. Justice, it appeared, was being served. But the story doesn't end there. In the sterile environment of the courtroom, the narrative took its most unexpected turn. The initial charges were serious. Felony exposure of sexual organs, noted as a second offense, and solicitation. These charges reflected the gravity of his actions and his history. Yet, when the case was resolved, the outcome was shockingly lenient. The solicitation charge was dropped completely. The felony exposure charge, the most serious count, was reduced to a simple misdemeanor. Gregory was found guilty of this much lesser crime. His sentence was not years in prison, but 1 year of probation, court costs totaling less than $500, and a mere 3 days in the county jail, with credit for time served. The man who had terrorized a young woman, who had a prior offense, and who was caught on camera, walked away with a punishment that amounted to a long weekend behind bars. The incontrovertible video evidence had secured a conviction, but it was a hollow victory. It proved his guilt, but failed to ensure a proportional punishment, leaving a lingering question about the true meaning of justice.